Welcome back to the channel, everybody. And I just got done watching the latest James Bond film for me, Spectre. So I'd seen Spectre in theaters in 2015, and I remember being like, yeah, I liked it. And then I haven't seen it since. And over the last, I don't know, I guess it's been out for almost 8 years now. I just feel like everyone, at least in the Bond community, everyone acts like this is just an atrocity of a film. And the one part I guess I can agree with or understand where people are coming from is that there's not really any like enjoyment in this movie, and there's not really a whole lot of like signature, oh, that's a Bond moment. Like normally in a Bond moment, you have like the theme kicks in and you're like, all right, like this is James Bond doing his thing, his spy stuff, this is awesome. And I don't really feel like we get that. At least I don't recall them using the Bond theme like hardly at all. But correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure at some point it was used. Maybe like in the snow stuff with Batista. I think when James has the plane, I think maybe they used it then. But overall, I would say that just how I feel about the movie, I liked it. I mean, it's not perfect, and there's definitely stuff that I would change. Briefly, if I'm just going to summarize the plot real quick, James, he's in Mexico City at the beginning of the movie, and anyway, he gets left a message from M about a guy that possibly could be linked, and it's important to go after. And then you find out that that guy is a member of Spectre, and then you find out what Spectre is, and you know that Blofeld is a character, because in this world it's kind of been reset, and that we haven't had a Blofeld before. But this brings me to one of probably my biggest flaw of the movie is that Christoph Waltz just doesn't work as Blofeld. He's not intimidating. Obviously, he's not a bad actor, and that's the thing. It's not like he can't play a villain, because in Inglourious Bastards, he won an Oscar for that movie, and he's great in that movie. He's kind of what makes it. I think Inglourious Bastards would have been a fun movie if he wasn't the villain, but the fact that he was the villain and could speak all those languages and be menacing while also be joking like the next line makes him that much better. I just don't think it works for this film. I don't think any line of dialogue that he has is like, ooh, that's really good. I would say probably my favorite part that he's in is when you get introduced to him. I do like that. I do like that he's even at the funeral and you like just see like barely like the side of his face. And like I said, I like the big Spectre meeting. I like him in that. And then yeah, I liked him at the very end where he's like behind the glass and James comes up to meet him and he's just like facing like this way while James is coming from this way. I like that. Their dialogue, though, isn't really all that great. And that's the thing. The whole cuckoo thing, I don't care for that. I think it just sounds silly. So, yeah, that would probably be my biggest flaw. The girl that plays Madeline Swan, she's fine. I do think she does a better job in No Time to Die, because I think she had the rare opportunity to come back as a Bond girl. In this one, she's fine. She's not a bad Bond girl, but I don't think she's all that memorable. And it is a little weird that they had been together for a couple days, and then when he's in the chair getting tortured, she's like, I love you. I don't know. I don't love that. It's done a lot better in Casino Royale with you actually buy it with Eva Green as why can't I think of her name? Vesper. So I kind of talked about the bad. I want to talk about the good. So the things that I really liked, I like the opening scene in Mexico City. I really think that's cool. I love the shot of him walking out of the hotel window and onto the ledge of the roof to get there. I like how they all did that. They did that in one shot. I thought that was really good. The helicopter fight is fine. The intro, the opening song by Sam. Why can't I think of his name? Why can't I think of the guy's name? It's not Sam Smith. Yeah. It's fine. Like, I like that song. It's not one of my favorites probably, but I think it's like musically, like it's artistic and like it's a beautiful, well-written song. It's just, I don't know if Sam Smith is the right guy, because I'm sorry, I just think his voice is a little too high-pitched to really work for a Bond film. And obviously there's women that have done the theme before, and it's not that. It's just, I don't think it's as, like, his voice kind of takes me out of it, where I'm like, I'm listening to Sam Smith instead of being focused on I'm watching a Bond movie. So yeah, but that's fine. I would say, like, I like Dave Bautista as Hinks, Mr. Hinks. I like him, and I like the whole, like, why do you think you have a right to, be the next in line over this guy? And he just like pushes the guy's eyes into his brain and just is like, okay, I crushed him and that's it. I like Hinks as a character. Now, could they have done a little bit better with him? Sure, but like I like the stuff on the train. I like James, kind of lights his jacket on fire and he just like takes it off. He's like, all right, what else you got? He throws stuff at him. He's like, nah, I'm good. What else you got? So I liked Batista. I thought he fit that henchman role like superbly. Yeah, I don't know. I got a lot of ums in here. I don't think this movie deserves the hate that it gets, but I kind of understand where people are coming from. The guy C, that's like clearly the villain or one of the villains, that I saw coming. Now, don't get me wrong. I kind of like that aspect of there's something else for the other characters to do. Like M has something else that's going on that he's fighting against, and not just like, well, I'm going to give you your mission brief and then I'll see you at the end of the movie and that's it. But yeah, I don't think Daniel Craig is given a ton to do. I think he's fine. He's serviceable and he does a fine job. There's not a whole lot that I think is memorable. The train sequence, pretty good. The stuff in the snow, that action sequence, I didn't really care for that. I think there's some shots of the plane that look cool, but overall, I didn't really love any of that. The stuff in the desert, like Spectre's headquarters, or at least Blofeld's headquarters, I thought that looked cool, and it looked practical when like they drive the car in. And there is something cool about like this 1948 Rolls Royce coming to pick you up. I think that's like classic and cool. So that could have worked. I think if you just would have cast somebody else as Blofeld, I think this whole movie just works that much better. Overall, like I said, this movie is a mixed bag for me. It's not going to rank anywhere as low as what some people have it, and then it's not going to rank it. I don't think it'd make my top 10 just because, like I said, it's lacking those signature Bond moments where you're like, when you think of a Bond movie, you're like, oh, I love that scene. I love that. For me, when I think of Spectre, I think of the opening scene. I think of the train sequence with Batista. Like, the finale in the old MI6 headquarters. I think that's a great location for a finale. I think that's good. I just think they kind of ruined it. Not ruined, but there's nothing fantastic or great in that. I do like the images on the wall, but like people have talked about, when you try to say in one whole movie that all this was connected, it just kind of rings hollow. You should have like sprinkled some breadcrumbs, like a little more breadcrumbs, I guess is what I should say. You don't need a man in a chair or any of that. It just to show clearly that everyone was working for somebody else. Like in Skyfall, it's not made apparent at all that Silva is working for somebody else. It just appears that he's on his own, and he was. They just retroactively tried to change that. The girl from The Matrix, what's her name? Monica Bellucci. She's so beautiful. I mean, even she's older in this movie. I want to say she was probably like in her late 40s when they filmed this, and she's still beautiful. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's not that old yet, but she's still beautiful. Yeah, overall, okay, so if I have to give my... the rankings will come here, I would hope, in the next 2 days, because I have only 3 Bond movies left. Goldfinger, A View to a Kill, which I've never seen before, and then Live and Let Die, which is one that I've seen many times. And Goldfinger I've seen enough, like probably like 4 times, 5 times maybe, but I'm looking forward to going back and rewatching it again. But for this was good, because like I said, this was only my second time that I think I'd ever seen it, and... yeah, if I have to give it a ranking, I would say Spectre is... I'd say guilty pleasure. It's like right underneath Bayadonna. And the reason I say that is just because it lacks the signature Bond moments or something where I'm like, that's great. But that being said, I just finished From Russia with Love today, and I think I'd rather watch Spectre again than watch From Russia with Love. And it's like, obviously the cinematography's better. There's more stuff that's going on in this movie. I find it more interesting. The set pieces are more interesting. The throwback with Mr. White, where we bring Mr. White back in, the Pale King, I like that. I do think that they should have done a little bit more with him instead of just, he's poisoned when James shows up. And, I didn't really love a whole lot of his lines. I would have loved a little bit more information from Mr. White. But Mr. White he's one of my favorite characters in, Quantum of Solace, when, that trailer came out where he's like, the first thing you should know about us is that we have people everywhere. I just think he's really mysterious and interesting. yet at the same time plays like a regular guy that you're like, yeah, that's believable that that's an actual guy that exists, because just like he's not this big hulking dude. He doesn't have like the best like comebacks for every person's line. He's not trying to like say something so witty to make you laugh that's typical in movies. He just comes off as like a very like straight and like, you know, to the point guy, but also like, you know, he's a little crazy, I guess. Yeah. Oh, this was directed by Sam Mendes. You can tell, like with the shots, that this is really good. I'm wondering if they got. I don't think they got the same guy to do the cinematography. No, they didn't. The guy is Skyfall. Why can't I think of it? Roger Deakins. I don't think he did the cinematography on this. I don't think so. It's not. It's not terribly like noticeable that it's different. I mean, Roger Deakins does have a certain like level of like, I don't know what you want to call it, like cinematography greatness, where you're just like, oh, that's definitely Roger Deakins. But that being said, the cinematography in this movie is good enough. Like, it still looks pretty good. With Sam Mendes, this must have been just, you know, they realized that once they realized that this wasn't going to be another Skyfall, that it was a little more disappointing, I think, is when they're like, all right, Sam probably wanted to do other projects, though, because, I mean, obviously he made 1917 after this movie, and that's a great one. That's up there for me. But yeah, like I said, I don't think this movie deserves the crap that it gets. Calvin Dyson is a Bond YouTuber that I highly respect, and the last time he did a James Bond rankings, I think he had this one as far as like actual Bond movies. I think he had this one dead last, because obviously he included like Never Say Never Again in the '60s Casino Royale movie. That those two I don't think should count. But this one, like I said, this one's far from the worst for me, because it at least like kept my interest. I did pause a few times whether to eat dinner or to just. There's some NBA news breaking tonight. I mean, this will be funny to look back on, but tonight my Boston Celtics traded for Kristaps Porzingis and gave up, in my opinion, next to nothing. They gave up Marcus Smart, who I think is an overrated player, and they gave up. Not that anyone cares about that stuff, but they got two picks out of it. Yeah, so I just think if you're watching this review, I think give Spectre a chance if you haven't seen it in a while. And like I said, I would never tell someone, oh, this is a great Bond film. It's just lacking the heart and the, like I said, signature iconic Bond moments where you'll be like, I want to come back to that. And it's lacking an amazing villain. They wasted Blofeld, and it's a shame. If they would have cast somebody else, I would have loved to see like people that you could have cast. You know what's weird? Le Chiffre, played by Mads Mikkelsen, he almost would have made a better Blofeld if they would have like switched that role. And I know he plays a great Le Chiffre, but it would have been funny somehow if they could bring him back and be like, I was Blofeld the whole time. That would have been cool. I know he's dead, and I get it, but that would have been cool, because I think he has the gravitas to play it and make that work. But regardless, we'll never get anything like that. So yeah, the next one for me will be Goldfinger. I might try to watch it tonight and do 3 Bond movies basically in one day. Goldfinger should be an easy watch, but yeah, like I said, hopefully by tomorrow night I can be done with all of them and then I'll actually make my Bond rankings video, and then I can kind of move on with my life. Not that I haven't enjoyed doing my Bond movies and reviews, but I'm getting the urge to like want to watch other things, because you'll notice that Bond movies, it feels like they kind of just go over a lot of the same stuff. So I think whoever does the next Bond movie, you need to, this is just me venting about it, but you need to have iconic Bond moments. You need to have great set pieces, great scenery, and great characters. And I think everything else can kind of, be whatever. Like you couldn't have good action. You don't need the best stunt choreography to make a Bond movie great. I think if you have great characters, great acting, some great dialogue, and some great locations, and a pretty good plot, you make a classic Bond movie. I think the perfect Bond movie is still yet to be made, because as good as Skyfall is and as good as Casino Royale are, they're still, like, Casino Royale doesn't have the magnitude that you would want a great James Bond movie to have, where like you feel like the world actually might be in peril. The world's not in peril in Casino Royale. It's very small in that regard. Skyfall, you could say the world is in a bigger danger, and Javier Bardem gives you that like great villain performance. What's lacking, I would say, is his heart is attached to M as far as like helping out M in that movie, but there's one little, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's some tiny thing missing with Skyfall that makes me say that like, oh, a Bond film couldn't get better than this. Like, I think there can be a better Bond film made. Although, has great cinematography. Sam Mendes, great director. I guess it might be the locations. Like, there's some good locations in Skyfall, don't get me wrong. It's the finale, that's what it is. The climax, yeah. If I have to put my finger on it, the climax at the Skyfall Ranch just isn't one of my favorites. It's not bad. Like, I can watch it and it's fine. But I feel like it's a little drawn out. And overall, it's just not... There's something better about the villain, I think, having a lair or something like that and you having to infiltrate it as opposed to the villain coming to you. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I know they were like shaking things up, but for me, it's a little lackluster. And you have this guy that's this super tech whiz, Silva, and he ends up dying in a church with like a knife in his back. I'm not saying that's unrealistic. It's just like, I don't know. Why would Silva ever be... I know he wants to kill M, and that's the reason why he gets out there, but I would have liked it a lot more if he would have been like, you're never going to actually see me in person, or like have me vulnerable like that. I think that's what all these villains, like Blofeld having to be in person to torment James. It's like, that's always the biggest problem. I feel like if these villains were as smart as they claim they are, they'd be like, I'm going to hang back in my bunker and I might send somebody out. I might dress them like me, whatever, but like, it won't be me. But anyway, that's it for Spectre. See me on the next one where I do Goldfinger. Have a good one, guys.